Watercress. In the ruins of Sithica, Master Watercress had his apprentice repairing a section of a crippling tower wall. Pieces of the ancient castle had fallen off the cliff they had overlooked during the Third Age after an attack from their northern neighbor. The Veterinary citizens had rebuilt the city more impressively atop the same cliff, and the ruins had sat in the green lake below ever since. Remember not to get any mortar on the stone faces when you're smoothing it out with your spoons. Watercress readjusted his foothold on the slanted stone surface of the ruined bell tower as he instructed Basil. Yes, precisely, just like that. In addition to mastering the healing arts, Watercress was renowned as a Renaissance man and an expert of countless trades. He intended to pass as much of his own expertise onto his apprentice as possible. I know, Master, you've told me already. Basil's amber eyes focused on the dilapidated wall. Though it was not his apprentice's main area of study, he tried to perfect whatever new subject Watercress presented him with. Yet, Basil learned the masonry craft faster than usual. A few more days of practice and the boy would be a proficient mason. However, Watercress observed something beyond Basil's work. Sprouts of phantom wings crept down Basil's back and arms through his cotton tunic. As was the custom, Watercress had been chosen as a child to become a mage because he possessed innate magical abilities. As a sorcerer, he had the advanced sight of one. Unlike most of the population, he could see ghosts and the phantom wings of spawn. Currently, Basil's wings were short, transparent spikes resembling fat icicles. Whenever he worked, his concentration nearly cast his wings away entirely. In passing, another mage likely would not have recognized Basil as a spawn, and in the middle of the lake, they were far enough away from everyone that Watercress hadn't fretted over the possibility. As was typical, Basil was in a sour mood, especially concerning the impact of his 16 rotations of age upon him, and his wing's appearance fluctuated with his undulating disposition. Although Watercress loved his apprentice as if he were his own son, Basil's mood swings challenged his patience. Aside from the occasional outburst, the more troubling issue was Basil's wings after he had suppressed his emotions. Watercress often had to keep Basil occupied to prevent his wings from becoming noticeable in public. The last thing Watercress wanted was for one of the other mages to see Basil with translucent lightning or lace or leather pouring from his skin. Luckily, only one other mage in Sithica resided outside the limestone castle, and Watercress had moved the healing mage's office to a different section of the city to minimize Basil's risk of exposure. Have I finished for today? Basil lowered his smoothing spoon. Yes, Basil, you would make a fine mason if you chose the path, Watercress said. We can return to the city. Basil gathered the tools he used to set the stones in their slanted old homes, and he carried them through a roughly carved path of overgrown bushes. At the base of the faux island, Basil cleared away a patch of lily pads to wash the tools in the lake's hidden blue waters before the mortar crusted onto the metal. I'll clean them in the office. Watercress knew Basil disliked getting wet, and the master wanted the tools cleaned to his high standards. Basil dumped the grimy instruments into their canoe, and his spiky stumps of wings expanded into clumps of cloud. All right, would you like to board first? If you would kindly. I'm not getting any younger, after all. Watercress grinned at the exaggeration. While Basil held the canoe steady, Watercress clumsily boarded, and the edge of his long sapphire cloak soaked up pond water. Ah! He exclaimed, annoyed with his carelessness, and tugged the damp fabric into the boat. Basil pulled himself to the bottom of the canoe without tipping the boat too far. Picking up the paddle, he pushed the canoe from the sunken limestone tower. They paddled toward the edge of the green-coated lake, with the master in front directing and the apprentice in back propelling the small boat forward. Basil struggled to shake the linked lily pads from his paddles while crossing the lake. Curiosity struck the apprentice when he lifted one of the patches of interconnected plants with an oar. Underneath them were dozens of lotus fish enjoying an afternoon meal, with larger koi coasting near the bottom, flipping up spurts of dirt as they passed. You know, Watercress said when Basil took an interest in the waters beneath the plants. There was once all sorts of vegetation living on the bottom of this lake before the lily pads covered the surface. Watercress had a fact to rattle off for any occasion, on any topic, and he relished sharing information as much as he enjoyed teaching trades. Basil placed the lily pads down and continued rowing to shore. Once on the sandy bank, Basil hopped out of the boat and pulled it into the sand. Extending a hand, Basil offered to help his master. Watercress accepted the help graciously. "Thank you, Basil." "You're welcome. However, I don't have the strength to carry you the whole way back to the city." Basil gestured to the gradual hill. Watercress had recently reached his 32nd rotation and led an active lifestyle. "You are not funny, boy," Watercress said. "I had the same sense of humor when I worked under Annis. I recall thinking myself hilarious for similar jests," Watercress thought. Basil smirked and huffed a laugh through his nose. He loosened the ties of his tunic and trousers, which had kept his sleeves and pant legs rolled out of the way while he had worked. With his garments resituated, Basil glanced toward the lake once more. "I cannot wait to return to where it smells less foul." Watercress hadn't detected a stench. Then again, the healer's post sat near the sewers, and his nose had become oblivious to foul odors. "There have not been bones in those waters for 5 millennia. The fish are the problem, not the fallen women and children of old." Basil's wings adopted a spindly look to them, indicating a haunting feeling according to wing theory. "Are you coming? We have a climb ahead of us, according to you," Watercress said, unaffected by his apprentice's uneasiness. Basil's wings faded back to rolling tufts, universally considered a happy state. "I intend to visit my parents today, if I may?" Basil asked as they headed up the long dirt path to the city. Watercress had never wanted to displease Basil. This wasn't only because Basil was the true archspawn of the 13th Age, but also because the master cared for his apprentice. Despite Basil's position, Watercress had to keep the boy's best interest in mind. "Would that be wise?" he asked. "I've heard a rumor that Basil's been bothering the merchant's daughter," Watercress thought. "I don't see a problem with visiting the manor." Basil dodged a tree branch that would have otherwise ruffled his short brown hair. Watercress pressed a hard look upon him. "I hear from your mother that you've taken a bit more of an interest in Zalafin than Morkagor would care for. Remember your position and take care not to get banned from the manor. If Morkagor forbids your entrance, I am powerless to facilitate future visitations, for owners have rights over their estates." Irony had interwoven between his words then, but it wasn't for Watercress to speak his thoughts on the matter. If everyone knew Basil was the Archspawn, he could request to visit Treeside Manor every day, and it would be considered a great honor to the family. Morkagor would likely try to pawn his daughter onto Basil. If his apprentice were to learn of his own identity, Watercress feared Basil would seize the opportunity to wed the vapid girl. "I only wish to visit my mother and father," Basil said earnestly. "So long as you do not become an unwelcome presence, you have my permission." "Thank you, master. While you're on that side of the city, I'll retrieve your mail and the news report." Watercress smiled at the prospect of harvesting his herbs rather than spending his time traveling to the transportation mage's post himself. As it was afternoon, Watercress didn't have to concern himself that Basil would encounter the transportation mage, Master Azimuth. The sorcerer only came first thing in the morning to post the daily deliveries and retrieve the news parchments. Withdrawing a baguette-cut sapphire from his gem pouch, Watercress gave the currency to his apprentice to finance the transaction. During a lull in the conversation, Watercress admired patches of light shining through violet-covered leaves. Sithica's heliotrope forest was the only one to consist solely of the splendid trees, and Watercress never took the experience for granted. The master nearly tripped due to his intense concentration on the vegetation. "You are so clumsy," Basil laughed. When Watercress regained his balance, he was about to respond with a witty comment. However, a fresh set of footprints leading to the city interrupted his banter. The trail led from the merchant road. Who's arrived? If there's a mage in their company, perhaps I should reconsider allowing Basil to travel to the manor. Then again, I already agreed to his going. Besides, when was the last time a mage accompanied a trading caravan to Sithica, using that route? His apprentice gave him a questioning glance, but Watercress ignored it and changed the subject. "If you ever travel away from here, you'll understand my interest in the trees. Other parts of the world only have green-leafed trees, and once you see the grass, the trees, and all the foliage cloaked in the same color, you'll miss this forest." "There's only one problem with that, though," Basil said. "You'll never let me leave." Watercress knew if Basil roamed freely, another sorcerer would recognize Basil as a spawn, and ruin the long-kept secret. Whenever fellow sorcerers visited, or when foreigners came to the city, Watercress cooped Basil in his office, away from roving eyes. During those times, his apprentice's wings displayed intense resentment. "Someday we'll travel together, I promise. Give your mother my regards," Watercress said when they parted. "Be sure to return for supper, and leave the poor Xalophon girl alone." "Yes, master, I will." Basil's expression lost its mirth, and his posture slackened. The last thing Watercress saw before his apprentice disappeared into the limestone city were the puffs on his back elongating into icicles, signifying lonesomeness once again.